Back again with another one. So people, I want you guys to check out this story. Now, like I said to you guys, that a lot of black folks in UK struggling to have documents. A lot of people in the UK only have 2 years stay and on the internet doing all manner of evil. We want to get into the story of 22 years in the UK. So let's get into the story. Read the best of my ability, and then you guys can do your own thing in the comment section or do you guys' own thing as see fit. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Tuesday. I hope you guys are not taking things for granted. And I hope at the end of the day, if you're working class, make sure you always save a little bit at the end of the month or the end of the week. See? Because you always have to put down for rainy day. Anyhow, a mom has been told she could face deportation from the UK despite holding a British passport and having lived in the country for 22 years. Amika Brown, 41, received a traumatizing letter from the Home Office 2 weeks ago threatening to strip her of her British citizenship over alleged identity fraud. The government correspondence alleges that Mrs. Brown obtained her citizenship using a false identity, warning she could be removed from the UK and sent back to her native Jamaica. However, Mrs. Brown insists that the officials have made an error, pointing out that the incorrect surname and date of birth are printed on the letter. Despite provide, okay, so she trying to prove that it's not true. So despite providing proof of her identity, Miss Brown is yet to receive a response from the Home Office, leaving her in fear of being ripped away from family. Living in Luton beds, Miss Brown said, "This has been absolutely traumatizing and I'm also stressed. I am terrified and I'm going to be ripped away from my family in the middle of the night. They are claiming that my identity is false, but I have all this proof of who I am." To confirm her identity, Miss Brown has sent the Home Office her birth certificate, which verifies her name and shows that she was born in 1982, not 1979. As the letter claims, she also provided her brother's birth certificate, which confirms he was born in 1979. She claims that she proves that they have her date of birth wrong. It's not possible for her and her sibling to be born within 3 months from the same mother, Miss Brown continued. What was so upsetting, it wasn't even a question of asking me to prove my identity. They accused me of fraud straight away. I am so anxious because I have seen people get wrongly deported before. The mother of 3 particular worried about the potential impacts on her career as she works as an accountant and is currently on a path to become a chartered. She said, "You can be an accountant if there's anything linking you to fraud. So that would be my whole career messed up." Miss Brown recounted her journey from Jamaica to UK in 2002 at the age of 19. She initially had visitor visa, married, became legalized in 2009, obtained an indefinite leave to remain, and eventually settled status in 2015. After divorce and remarriage in 2019, she became a British citizen and received her passport the same year. The process, according to her, cost her around £10,000 in fees. Residing with her husband and youngest daughter, who is 10, Miss Brown is struggling to establish communication with the authorities, saying, "I just want to be able to talk to someone." But there's no direct phone number and letters have had no respond. It's affecting my whole family. Everyone is worried. My eldest daughter in particular is concerned, as if I get deported, they will all send her too. Right? So Mrs. Brown is basically saying, if she get deported, they will send her too. Having someone question my identity like this is just being so horrible. I don't know what I'll do. I've been here for most of my life, and I've been to university and I have got a career. I've never been in trouble. I just want them to see that I'm who I say I am. The Home Office said the case is still live and being looked into. A spokesperson added, it is our long-standing position that we do not comment on individual cases. So could you imagine that been in the UK for 22 years, didn't realize that the age on her documents was possible wrong, didn't correct it until the Homeland Security say, hey, you're here, identity fraud. You got your citizenship fraudulently, so you need to be deported out of the country. There's many stories like that where there's a guy that was deported from the UK, and he was a UK citizen and born in UK. We also heard about the Windrush families that went to UK rightfully and end up nowadays days can't get their pension and almost ready to throw it at the country because they claim they can't find their documents. Okay? So at the end of the day, people, if you know someone going through this is a story that you can relate to. Or if you know this lady and she's telling the truth, then we could also pray for her when it comes to all of that. Okay? So when you really think about it, a lot of Jamaicans been deported from the UK lots of times, and it's just a whole scenario when it comes to Jamaican being deported over and over again when it comes to the UK. Okay? And all over the world when you think about it. Okay? So all of that. And even with the Windrush debate and scandal came up the other day from all of that. Okay? So we want to give you a piece of the Windrush generation story, and then we're going to jump off of this live quick and fast. Yes?
The government claims it has acted to end the Windrush scandal, but tonight our guests reveal the true depth of Britain's hostile environment towards immigrants. Solve the problem, or are there many scandals unfixed? Tonight we have gathered those directly affected, some terribly so. We've put them together with politicians, leading thinkers and cultural commentators. What does it say about us, this Britain?
Also tonight, President Macron becomes the first world leader to have a state visit to President Trump's White House.
I'll get that little piece of dandruff off.
Amid the bonhomie, can an unlikely bromance between these two lead the world toward peace? And claim and counterclaim in the...
Being
And on them.
You're not a
bring them down somewhat.
So this was
we should
low-hanging fruit, wasn't it?
and we should also control the system more. We have moved from a very laissez-faire immigration system to a much more controlled one. And some people have unfairly got caught up in the net of that greater control. And we have also been trying to bear down on the much higher levels of illegal immigration.
But was it unfair or was it deliberate? Because what it looks like is that this was low-hanging fruit. These were easy people to get rid of, to get deportations up, to get immigration numbers down.
I think it was a lack of historical memory in the department. It was a tick box culture. There clearly had been some brutal behaviour on the part of some officials. But the overall reason why, as David said, that the kind of the border has had to come in is because it is very, very difficult to deport people in this country. We deported only 6,000 people against their will who were not offenders last year. That is a very small number. So governments have thought the way to bear down on illegal immigration is to make it more uncomfortable, more difficult for illegal immigrants to survive by making people prove their status. If they want to rent a flat or buy a car or whatever.
It's nonsense.
It's nonsense because everywhere in the world when governments bear down, all you do is you drive people underground, you drive people into poverty, and you create a class of undocumented people. That's what it does. I'm sorry, but David is an example of someone who does not have to deal with the consequences of this pernicious policy. Never exposed to it, apparently an expert on it, but has never seen it face up.
No, that is not true. That is unfair. We have nearly 1 million, it's estimated we have about 1 million illegal immigrants in this country. Illegal immigration is a great scourge, people who work in sort of semi-slavery conditions, and it's a scourge that particularly affects ethnic minorities in inner city Britain. It is completely legitimate to try and bear down on it. It is true that somebody like me does not have to prove their status. And it should be the case that somebody like me should have to prove my status.
You were trying to get in there, weren't you?
I came in 1961. I paid my taxes. Now I've been working in the same school for the last 15 years. And it came a point where I became an issue when my HR was changed to Islington. They found that I didn't have a biometric card to work. So I was greeted by a member from HR telling me that I had no rights to work. I was illegal. I shouldn't have the right to work. And I lost my job. I don't know how this could be what you're saying is the right way. I mean,
that was just a mistake.
Yeah, but no, I don't believe that. Yeah. Mistakes are not made in people's lives. Yeah. People's lives you're talking about here. Yeah. Mistakes, I'm sorry, that's not what I'm here for.
Why do you?
So you think it was deliberate? I mean, it was a mistake.
I think people do think it's deliberate. That's the whole point, isn't it?
And I think
there's no evidence.
But the idea that it's due to a lack of historical memory in itself is a choice. We choose not to educate the masses about the historical links between ourselves and the Commonwealth, and that in itself is going to foster, ignorance about why we're in this place at the moment. If we don't remember or we don't tell people what's going on.
You also served in the services, didn't you?
Questions now that need to be asked is how did we get into this mess in the first place? I know some people saying there's a conspiracy theory, others are saying the other seed theory. But what we should be asking ourselves, how do we right this? How do we get out of it? How do we make matters better?
Well, the government says it's done it. That's why they're not here tonight.
But governments, whether it's be Conservative or Labour, I've lived here for 60-odd years, and this is not a problem that is being vested on the one government we've had.
But there will be people at home watching this going, hang on a minute, I saw the Home Secretary last night saying, you're all going to get British passports. Your children are all going to get British passports. What are you still complaining about?
The question will be, when will this happen? Will it happen? Government, Labour government, Conservative government, the coalition government, they've all remembered the promise that a member of the coalition made about student loan. Now, when will it happen? When will it happen?
Just briefly.
In 60 years that over 60 years I've lived here, Mr. Lammy, and I have had promises and promises and promises. Many of them, different government, many of them have never been acted on. So what we should want to know now, because you said, is people's lives. Let us put these people's lives back on track and take it off hold that it's in at the moment.
Let me just briefly bring in George Ruddock at the back here.
I think, I know that they've said they'll make changes now, but I think what needs to be done and keep an eye on is 170,000 signatures signed for that petition, and it's still growing. I think they should be thinking about doing an an investigation into the whole debacle, and also maybe consider taking it to make it become an act of Parliament.
Okay, let's pause it there for a second, because we have a report from Amika Brown in Jamaica, where Britain is recruiting nurses right now to alleviate NHS shortages. History is repeating itself, but Jamaicans say it's at their expense.
At morning worship in Kingston's Christ Church, Britain's colonial influence is omnipresent.
We here are members of the Anglican Church, and that was the official church of Jamaica originally when Britain was, in charge.
In Jamaica, Britain's gift of religion remains, but so does the hangover of what they were given in return.
During the sugar heydays, we created the wealth that was Britain at that time.
In the 1940s, they needed nurses, they needed people to come and drive the buses. The public transport was manned by Caribbean people.
From forced labour to migrant labourers, today's sermon is on the week's urgent news.
The Windrush generation, many have been treated as illegal immigrants under new policy.
In this congregation, there's anger over Britain's perceived disrespect towards a relationship with the Caribbean that only goes one way.
You took us from a country and brought us here, enslave us, work us out to nothing, give us nothing, but ain't no land, right? Becomes squatters, in the land that you brought us in.
Quite a sad situation.
British unfairness is the word from this Minister of Religion, and Jamaica's Minister of Health says Britain continues to take from Jamaica by tapping its most important resource, skilled workers like nurses.
We have given a lot and have felt that we have not gotten back in return a sort of commensurate level of benefits. And a manifestation of that clearly has come out in terms of the Windrush issue.
At University Hospital of the West Indies, if you thought Britain's need for Caribbean labour was in the past, then on this ICU ward, there's a sense of déjà vu.
History is repeating itself because so many of our nurses go, they give their skills, they give their young years. When you're young and you have your vibrancy, they give that to the motherland or the US or wherever.
I graduated in 2008 and my batch was about 80 plus nurses, and I only know of about 4 persons who remain in Jamaica.
Jamaica's nurses have been targeted by recruiters from Britain to alleviate the shortage of NHS nurses, but it's perpetuating a crisis here. Last week, the government announced a nursing partnership with Jamaica, but it will mean Britain's so-called hostile environment will need to end.
There is a significant opportunity that could be had that could be mutually beneficial, but it would depend on the UK adjusting their rules, adjusting their immigration laws, and providing the opportunity.
70 years on from the Windrush, and Britain is again leaning on its former colonies, who want a more reciprocal relationship post-Brexit, and believe Britain has forgotten their contribution.
Well, also joining me now from Jamaica is immigration lawyer Jennifer Howson, who's worked on many cases here and there. Just give us a sense of the scale of the problem. How many people do you think are in Jamaica, in limbo?
Right, good afternoon. The difficulty is that the numbers are quite difficult for someone to put a number to it. The numbers are difficult to gauge. What I can say is that I deal with at least 10 cases a year where people have come from the UK, from the Windrush generation, people in the over 55 who have come to Jamaica and been stranded here. Some have been lucky, others not so. So just for myself, and I'm only just one person doing this, a lot of times we get persons who have had their relatives in the UK dealing with the matter. But certainly, I can attest to at least a dozen cases a year that this has happened to. And that, it may sound low, but it is actually extraordinarily high in and of itself. So taken together, when you look at the figures, we don't necessarily have statistics, data that is formal. We have no formal data. But what I can say is we hear the numbers going out there, and the 50,000 that is being spoken of, some of those people are certainly persons who've come out of that into Jamaica.
Jennifer Howson, thank you very much indeed. Well, we have some nurses from Jamaica and the Caribbean.
So you hear how the UK deal with the Caribbean people from day one. So if you know, you know, and if you don't know, now you know. So be mindful how you're going to the UK. And if you're going to the UK, make sure you stay on the right path so you can get your citizenship and stay on the right path without being deported. Catch you guys with another content. Peace and love.